Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. You're all very special to me, and I hope you're having a fabulous evening or fabulous afternoon wherever you are in the world. And I'm so glad you've joined me tonight for part 2 of our sensational story, because it is a most incredible story. And here we are on part 2, and we have to feel great sympathy towards Chelsea, because a woman has arrived at our house with a huge suitcase dragging behind her, calling herself Rachel Carlson, and she's bringing her son along with her, and we're wondering what is going on here. I think we're about to find out. So I look forward to you joining me for part 2 of this fabulous story. The woman took another puff of her Marlboro cigarette, blowing out a large cloud of white smoke directly into Chelsea's face. It caused Chelsea to wheeze and her eyes to water. She smacked away the smoke in disgust with the back of her hand. She hated smoking of any kind, as being a reformed smoker herself, she had a particular aversion to smoke, especially in her farmhouse, as you could never get the smell out of the curtains and the furniture. The woman's eyes narrowed with a smug, self-satisfied look that reminded Chelsea of when you were playing a game of cards and you knew you had a killer hand and that you were going to walk away with the prize, leaving behind you a trail of defeated players who were less than amused. She tutted, "Oh, Rick has been a naughty boy, has he? Didn't tell his little wifey about me. I wonder why not," she said, blowing out her words with her smoke, leaving them suspended in the air. "Would you kindly please stop playing games with me, because I'm not amused," said Chelsea. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave, Rachel Carlson, or whatever you call yourself. I have no idea who on earth you are. You waltzed into my home demanding coffee, acting like you own this place, which you most certainly do not. I'd like you very much and your son to please leave. Whether you know my husband or not is no concern of mine at all. I'm very sorry, but you are not welcome here. This is not a glorified B&B. And just so you know, I can direct you in the right path to find one. But you're not going to make yourself comfortable in my home, and I'd like you to go." "You heard the woman," said Eric in a stiff tone of voice. "She'd like you to leave now. I will help escort you off the premises," he said, rising up from his chair, gesturing the woman and her son to follow his lead. But they remained resolutely anchored to their seats. Well, at least the woman did. She had the look on her face of a very mulish bull terrier that was not going to do what it was told, no matter how many treats you threw its way. "You can't do that, just throw us out like this," said the woman. "You're going to kick out your stepson, are you?" she said, tapping her son's shoulders. "This is Tyson," she said. "Tyson, meet your stepmother, Chelsea." The boy sat there just glaring at Chelsea, showing not a hint of warmth towards her. It was obvious he was equally as obnoxious as his mother, but he didn't want to be in Chelsea's kitchen, any more than she wanted him here. It was his mother that had tethered him to his chair. "Stepson," said Chelsea, "are you trying to wind me up? My husband has no other children apart from Ashley, our 7-year-old girl. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I can assure you he does not have a son." "Oh, but he does," said Rachel, looking defiant. She almost looked as if she was enjoying the shock she'd brought into the household. "You're lying," said Chelsea. "Me and my husband Rick are very close. We don't keep secrets from each other. I think if we had a son, well, if he had a son, I'd know all about it. You can't make this stuff up and expect me to believe your nonsense." Rachel's eyes narrowed. She gave Chelsea a manic grin. "Well, sadly, Loverboy's been very, very naughty. Naughty boy. He's been keeping a big, big secret from you," she tutted. "He knocked me up when I was 18 years old, he did. And he never told you about me, did he? But then 3 years after I had fallen pregnant and had my boy, he married you. After you fell pregnant. Let's just say he did the right thing by you and not by me. But then again, I wasn't so lucky, possibly because you were the one that came from the right side of the tracks, and I did not. He considered me trailer trash, I'm most sure. He was a bit of an inverted snob like that. What on earth are you talking about, lady? I know my husband Rick never had a child with you. I would know about it if he did, and frankly, even if he did, make you pregnant, that is. He didn't commit to you because, let me tell you, lady, you are frankly not his type. It's nothing to do with my husband being an inverted snob, as you say. He's not like that. My husband is one of the most kind people you could ever hope to meet. He's got great integrity. The woman laughed. Tell yourself what you like, lady, if it makes you feel better. I would like to remind you the name is Chelsea, and I would prefer it if you'd call me that. Well, let's just say, Chelsea, I think your husband Rick has been a naughty, naughty boy. I'm his dirty little clandestine secret that he doesn't want to share with anyone, let alone you. The quintessential skeleton in the cupboard he hoped would stay deeply buried underground and never see the light of day. Unfortunately, skeletons can get restless, as this one has. So unfortunately, you are staring at your husband's skeleton or dirty secret rudely in the face, which can't be easy for you to digest, Chelsea. But I'm not making this up. If you must know, he's been paying me regular child support for the last 10 years or so. I suppose I can't fault him for that. He's been good to his son over a distance, visited him twice a year, sent him presents for birthdays and Christmases. But it's not enough. She opened her purse and pulled out an old card, tossing it over to Chelsea, who looked at the envelope and the card, opening it up. It was a birthday card, addressed to the woman's son, written in her husband's distinct handwriting that Chelsea would know anywhere. Chelsea stoically read the card. Her face paled, her eyes widened, her mouth dropped open. This could not be happening. This could not be happening. This was an absolute nightmare. Eric reached over the table to squeeze her by the hand. Don't get upset, Chelsea, he reassured her. I think Rick will explain everything to you. Maybe he has his good reasons for not telling you about his son. He's very protective towards you. The woman sniggered, contorting her face so that she suddenly looked quite ugly. I can't say I'm surprised, she said. It's typical of Rick not to tell you. Your husband didn't want his own parents to know about my pregnancy. He was so ashamed. So why would he tell his little sweet wifey? I think he thought his mother would force us to get married. Your husband was happy to have a one-night stand with me, was he not? But when he found out he'd made me pregnant, he didn't want to commit to me at all. I was the daughter of the woman who at one time had been hired by his parents to clean the family home. He didn't want anyone to know he was the father of my baby. I guess he thought I was a piece of trailer trash, as I told you before, because I did grow up in a trailer, and he saw me as a lower form of pond life. He told me he wouldn't pay me a bean if I told anyone that the baby was his. And I desperately needed the money, so I dutifully kept stom. But I've had enough, and sooner or later— The cockroaches have to come out of the woodwork, said Eric, completing the woman's sentence curtly. If you want to put it like that, then you can, said the woman, eyeing Eric through hardening eyes. See if I care. It's no skin off my nose. To put it bluntly, I am tired of being lumbered with my son, responsible for doing everything. Sorry, what are you talking about? Said Chelsea, trying to get her head around what the woman was saying. She was claiming her husband had a child with him before she'd even met Rick. But why would he not have shared such a big secret with her? It seemed incredulous, but she didn't doubt that this nauseating woman was actually telling her the truth, especially after seeing the card written in her husband's handwriting. The startling revelation had hit her hard like an ice pick being flung at her head. How could her husband Rick have kept such a monumental secret from her? She felt betrayed by him, very, very disappointed. What I'm saying, said the woman, is that I'm giving over my son Tyler to your husband's charge. Every boy needs his father. My son is no exception to that rule. He needs his father's influence in his life. He's run me into the ground, he has, and I cannot cope with him a moment longer. He's almost 11. He's always getting into trouble. It's about time Rick took over some of his parental responsibilities as a father a little bit more seriously, instead of expecting me to do all the work in raising our son. So I'm leaving him here with you. I need to go, she said, raising herself from the chair, squeezing the remnants of her cigarette into the coffee mug. Thanks for the coffee, and good luck with Tyson, 'cause you're seriously going to need it. Wait! You can't possibly go, said Chelsea, leaving us in the lurch like this, abandoning your own son to my husband's charge. You can't go like this as if you're dropping off a stray dog that you no longer want. It's cruel, it's insane, and it's downright ridiculous. This is not how it works. I've never met you a day in my life. You barge into our home like this, dropping off your son as if it's no big deal. You just can't do that. Chelsea, I will remind you, a moment ago you were practically kicking me out of your house. Now you want me to stay. Make up your mind, will you? I want you to go, of course I do, and to take your son with you. You can't possibly leave him here with us. I'm sorry, but you just can't. I think you'll find I can, said the woman curtly. Now you'll be a good boy, Tyson, won't you? She said, leaning over to kiss her son on the cheek. Try and behave yourself, will you? I don't want to stay here, Mum, with these strange, horrible people. I want to come home with you. The woman lifted her son's chin to her face and stared into his eyes. Tyson, we've discussed this long and hard. You're the one that has dug your own grave. I told you if you continued with your bad behaviour, that you'd give me no choice but to drop you off at your father's house, which I've done. You are going to stay here whether you like it or not, and you are going to have to behave. And I hope Rick will toe you into line. But now I need to leave. I can't continue to live with someone who cuts up my clothes in the way you do, and especially after you punctured the wheels of my car. I just can't live like that. He did what? Asked Chelsea, looking from the woman to her son in horror. I'm sorry, Rachel Carson, or whatever you call yourself, but I cannot have an unruly, insubordinate child on my property. He'll be a bad influence to our daughter. He can't possibly move in with us. You must take him back home with you. I think you will find he can move in with you, and he will, said the woman, giving Chelsea a watery smile. If Rick had taken more responsibility with Tyler all those years ago, maybe my son would not be such a screw-up. He needs to fix Tyler, because I can't. It's his job, not mine. I'm leaving him with you, and there's no choice in the matter. I'm sorry, but that is the way it is. Mum, please don't go. I told you I'm so sorry, said the boy, but the woman pushed past him, sauntering out of the house with a nonchalant indifference, as if dropping off a grocery order, and then she was gone just like that, leaving Eric and Chelsea standing in the doorway looking bemused, completely nonplussed about what had just happened. Bloody hell, said Eric, looking at Chelsea. Are you all right? He said, putting a comforting arm around Chelsea's back. That was brutal. There is no other way to describe it. Brutal. I don't know what to make of all this, Eric, said Chelsea. I really don't. I feel as if my entire body has gone into septic shock. I can't look after somebody else's son. Who does that woman think she is, just dumping him on us like this? What am I going to do, Eric? I saw the handwriting in that card. It was my husband's, Eric. There was no doubt about it. He's got very distinctive handwriting. I think the boy must be his son. But he never told me about any of this. Why didn't he tell me, Eric? Don't get upset, Chelsea. Your husband is a good man. You know he is. That woman, Rachel Carson, was saying Rick would have been forced to marry her by his mother all those years ago. But Rick's mother was already dead by then. You were very young when you married Rick, and even though you were pregnant at the time, he married you because he loved you. Rick did not settle down with Rachel Carson after he made her pregnant, which speaks volumes. Maybe he was scared to tell you that he had a son with someone else, in case you rejected him. I'm sure things will work out all right, said Eric sympathetically. You can discuss everything with Rick when he gets home tonight. It sounds like he has a lot of explaining to do. I would not like to be in his shoes tonight when he gets home, he teased. I've seen you let a lot of steam off when you're angry, Chelsea, and the kettle on the hob boiling away ain't got anything on you when you're angry." When Rick returned home that evening, he was met by a sombre, very subdued wife that looked as miserable and as overcast as a grey thundercloud. Eric, who was so thoughtful, had generously taken the young boy and Chelsea's daughter Ashley to the movies together, followed by a pizza place in town, so that Chelsea could have the house to herself to discuss the skeleton in Rick's closet that had re-emerged through the earth like an ugly weed that they needed to address. When Chelsea's husband Rick entered the house with a newspaper in one hand and a leather briefcase in another, he could sense in the cloying, melancholic silence of the house that something was not quite right this evening. Even the golden Labradors did not greet him with their usual warm ebullience, and everything seemed oddly repressed and gloomy. And the woman standing in the doorway of the kitchen, with eyes peppered and clouded with sadness and hurt, was not a sight any man would like to meet when returning from a hard day at the office. "What on earth is wrong, sweetheart?" he asked. "I feel as if I've walked into a morgue. Has somebody died? What has happened?" "I think you better sit down, Rick," said Chelsea, pulling out one of the kitchen chairs at the table, "because you've got some explaining to do. For your information, a young boy called Tyson has moved into our house since this morning. He came here with his suitcase and was dropped off by a belligerent, capricious woman calling herself Rachel Carson. And he's as obnoxious as his mother." "Rachel was here?" asked Rick, his face growing red. "I don't understand. We had an agreement." "An agreement, Rick? Is that what you call it? An agreement that I knew nothing about? How can you keep this from me, Rick? I feel utterly betrayed by you. Yes, she was here, and furthermore she dropped her son Tyler off with us. Your son, I might add. And she's insisting he must live with us now. How do you think that makes me feel? I'm completely devastated by all of this." "What a bloody cheek," said Rick. "She didn't think to discuss this with me, phone me at all. How presumptuous can you get? I never did like that woman. She was always trouble." "So much trouble that you knocked her up when she was 18 years old and thought not to tell me anything about the matter. How do you think that makes me feel, Rick? Did you even stop to consider my feelings in this matter? Did I not deserve to know that you had fathered somebody else's son?" "I'm so sorry, Chelsea. I don't know what to say. I'm ashamed of myself. I should have told you about Tyson a long time ago. The name is not Tyler, it's Tyson. It's easy to get confused, I know. But just think of the boxer, and you'll remember his name. When I made you pregnant, I was genuinely thrilled, because I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. But if I told you about her, I wasn't sure how you would take it. I couldn't risk losing you, so I decided not to tell you about it." "But why ever not? I'd have still stayed with you, Rick, because I love you. It wouldn't have made any difference to me whatsoever. How could you possibly doubt my loyalty? I thought we agreed not to keep secrets from each other. What else do I not know about you, Rick? Do I even know the man I thought I married? Or am I about to find out that your mother was from the Pleiades and never did die of cancer after all, as she's up there in another galaxy or something?" "Don't be like that, Chelsea. Of course you know me, love. I don't keep secrets from you. I didn't want to tell you about Rachel Carson because it was so awful, an awful mistake that I really regretted. I wish to God it had never happened. I guess I thought if I blocked it out of my life it would just go away, and that I would send Rachel Carson child support and visit my son a couple of times a year. I thought I could keep this secret buried, but obviously my plan backfired. But I am actually relieved you know about it now." "But why? I don't get it, why you would keep this from me. I just don't understand." Rick ran his hand through his hair and pulled at it. "I don't know. It's very hard to explain to you, Chelsea, it really is. How do I explain it all? You see, Rachel Carlson and her mother lived in a trailer park when I was a little boy. Her mother had Rachel when she was only 15 years old. She was incredibly young. My parents gave her mother a cleaning job at the house when I was a little boy because they felt very sorry for her circumstances. She would bring along her daughter to play with me while she worked doing cleaning around the property. Rachel was her daughter, and for a long while her mother worked for my parents, until she finally got a job as a librarian at the local library, and then we barely ever saw her again. Years went by, and one day when I was 18, I met this young girl at a party. We both got drunk. Actually, the young girl ploughed me with alcohol, so I was really bladdered. One thing led to another, and I found over a month later I had made this girl, that was only a one-night stand, pregnant. In truth, I don't even remember having a one-night stand with her, but I guess it must have happened, although I have no memory of it, which is even more shameful to have to admit. I'm useless with alcohol, especially back then. It went straight to my head. Not that I'm making any excuses for myself, because I was responsible for what I did. I remember Rachel rocked up at the front door, demanding to speak to me. My father had no idea who she was, as she had changed so much. He didn't recognize her as the girl that I'd played with as a boy, and nor did I, for that matter. I remember we went for a walk in the woodgrove together, because I wanted to speak to her away from my father. I knew that she had something important to convey to me. Imagine your one-night stand rocking up at your house like a bad smell with something important to tell you. It didn't sit well in my stomach. I was filled with this sense of impending dread, because I guess I knew what she was going to tell me. She revealed to me that she was Rachel, the girl that had played with me as a little boy, a blast from the past, so to speak. When my mother was alive, she was devoutly religious. If she had known that I'd made Rachel pregnant, she'd have insisted I got married to the woman. But I knew that we would be miserable together. Even as a kid, Rachel was off her head. She was weird and rather outlandish. I can't remember the things she did back then. It was so long ago. But I remember thinking very much that she wasn't all there. And even the way she behaved at that party. She was off her head, let me tell you. So when we got deeper into the woods, my heart was pounding violently in my chest. I was terrified about what she was going to tell me. And of course it came out. "You made me pregnant at the party," she told me. "What do you intend to do about it? Are you going to marry me or not?" I think she was genuinely expecting me to marry her, but I told her she was never going to marry me. It wasn't going to happen. "I don't love you," I said. "I can't possibly marry you. I remember you as a girl. You were strange. It would never work out for the two of us." I was brutally honest with her. She didn't take it at all well, I hasten to say. I told Rachel in no uncertain terms that I did not want to be involved in her baby's life, and if she wanted to raise her son, I would support her financially. But if she told anyone that I'd made her pregnant, she would get absolutely no money from me. Rachel then moved away to live with her grandparents in Wyoming. I sent her checks as I promised every month, and visited Tyson twice a year. But let me tell you, that child is trouble. So I guess that's why she dumped him on us in the way she did. I know he's been kicked out of many schools he's attended for insubordinate behavior. I can't believe what you're telling me, Rick. This is a dreadful mess. I wish to God you had not kept all this information from me. We can't keep Tyson, especially if he's trouble like you say he is. What kind of a negative influence will he be on Ashley's life? Surely you can persuade Rachel to take him back. Give her more money if she needs it. But we can't possibly keep him. I just don't want him here. Rachel is an extremely difficult woman, said Rick. She doesn't want to be around a problem child, so she's tossed him at us. and I'm expected to take care of him. I'm afraid I have a responsibility towards him as his father. We're going to have to watch him like a hawk, but he's going to have to stay with us because he is my son." 1 year later. There is no easy way to put this, but life had certainly not been the same for the Saxon family since Tyson had moved in with them, and his chaotic, fortuitous disruption in their lives had been most unwelcome. The child was volatile and explosive, constantly having temper tantrums and outbursts, and no matter how much Rick tried to discipline his son, the kid was completely out of control, like a belligerent dog that you could not restrain. Tyson would deliberately miss school, smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol in the school playground, and even at 12 years old, he was always disrupting classes by causing mayhem whenever he possibly could, and getting caught up in all kinds of fights in school. He had put 3 kids in hospital, but the authorities had done nothing to get this child specialist help, because he hadn't killed anyone yet, or attempted to kill them, that is. Chelsea could not cope having such a dysfunctional child around the house, whom had been diagnosed with conduct disorder, which for an adult would be literally known as antisocial personality disorder. He also had psychopathic tendencies, but there was nothing that Chelsea could do until Tyson's behaviour got excessively out of control, which she believed it already was. Then he could be admitted to a medical facility for psychiatric help. But no psychiatric hospital took anyone in indefinitely until they had committed a grievous crime, and it seemed breaking someone's rib or giving them a black eye was not enough to put him away indefinitely. He had not been deemed a threat to society yet, so it was like sitting on a time bomb, waiting for it to go off, because the Saxon family knew sooner or later that Tyson would do something really, really bad. Tyson was already in attendance at his 3rd school, having been expelled from the former 2. The kid was not normal. Chelsea was left with a feeling that one day things would go so badly awry, and they very nearly did, had it not been for a bizarre intervention from an unlikely source that saved the day, that no one saw coming. "I can't possibly cope with Tyson living in our house a moment longer," Chelsea complained to her husband Rick. "Can't we send him to boarding school or something? Anything to get him out of this house." "Ashley's so scared of her stepbrother. The dogs avoid him like the plague, and every school he goes to purges him out like the disgusting vomit they don't want to deal with. He needs specialist help, does he not? And we're not equipped to give him that. He has locked our little girl in the yard shed 3 times already and thought it hilariously funny, while Ashley was scared to death. He shredded up her brand new school uniforms because I refused to buy him the latest pair of Nike trainers. When I told him he couldn't have a second slice of Mississippi mud pie, he yelled at me so rudely, told me I was a controlling bitch. Then he lunged at the pie and smashed the whole pie against the wall and said, 'If I can't have more pie, no one's going to have any.' It was such a dreadful mess, but he refused to clean it up. Instead, he stomped to his bedroom, locked the door behind him, put on the music blaringly loudly so that the whole house vibrated and we couldn't hear ourselves think. Later, in retaliation, he broke all the china crockery to get his revenge on me. And do you know, the other day he threw a crystal vase at me. When I told him he had to do his homework, he didn't aim it at me, but that is not the point. One of those glass shards could have done no end of damage. Besides, the crystal vase actually meant a whole lot to me. But Tyson didn't care about the mayhem he caused. Not at all. He told me in no uncertain terms to stop ordering him around. And he said, 'You're not my mother, so stop acting like you are. You don't even love me, do you? None of you do. I'm not stupid. You don't want me here upsetting your lives.' I told him I could grow to love him if he gave me a chance to do so. But it's very difficult to love anyone that's constantly causing so much chaos and pandemonium around the place. He told me I did not deserve to be a mother, because I played favourites with our daughter. 'If Ashley isn't around, maybe you'll give me more attention,' he said. That scared the hell out of me, Rick. I'm very worried about him. I am concerned for Ashley's welfare. He's very jealous about my relationship with her. You don't think he'd harm her, do you?" Rick looked at his wife with a dismayed expression on his face. "Tyson said that to you," he said, rubbing his chin reflectively. "That is a worry. We do need to watch him very carefully. Perhaps you should get Ashley to stay with your parents for a while, to ensure she's safe." "But that's only a short-term solution. How long do we have to live like this, Rick? I don't trust him at all. I've told the police about my feelings. It's been a year, and I feel as if I'm falling apart. If Eric were not around to cushion the blows while you're at work, I'd have cracked up a long time ago, you know. I don't mind admitting to you, Rick, I'm scared of Tyson. I really am. I believe everyone has underestimated what he is capable of, but he hasn't fooled me, not for a second." Rick sighed. "He is a problem child. He appears to have no emotional responses to what he does, which is a common phenomena in conduct or antisocial personality disorder. I did apply to send him to a couple of boarding schools. I didn't want to tell you about my inquiries, as both boarding schools refused to accept him, and I knew that would distress you greatly. The kid's a liability, but no one seems willing to help us. I really don't know what we can do. Even Eric, who knows how to charm the animals, has not managed to work his magic on Tyson. And believe me, love, he has tried, giving him responsible jobs around the farm. But that boy doesn't want to lift his finger to anything. He doesn't want to be helpful or industrious. It's like he gets off stirring up trouble wherever he goes and upsetting people." It was exactly a year to the day when Tyson's mother had brought her child to their home, and since her fortuitous arrival, nothing had ever been the same. It was as if the farm had been contaminated with a dark, cloying, repugnant energy, like a festering mold that was eating away at the family's joy. And everyone went to bed, locking their bedroom doors behind them, just to feel safe. Rick had contacted Tyson's mother, Rachel, begging her to pick up her son and take him back, but she refused to be involved in her son's life anymore, and claimed she was pregnant with another man's child, whom she'd recently married. "I can't possibly take that child back. It's so good not having him in my life, and I can't put my new baby at risk. You know what Tyson's like. That boy doesn't even have a heart." For the Saxon family, it was as if a tsunami had plundered their lives with a forceful magnitude, and everyone clandestinely wished that the problem of Tyson would just go away. And although Chelsea knew it's a terrible thing to think, she did wish that Tyson was dead, and chastised herself for these strong emotions. If he wasn't around, life would return to normal. Things would be good again. Every day she lived on tenterhooks, fearful of what Tyson would do, for she knew he was capable of causing harm. But she kept those discomposing, alarming thoughts to herself, but privately wondered if her husband felt much the same. He had certainly reacted adversely to what she had told him about how Tyson wished Ashley wasn't around, so he could get more attention for himself. That startling revelation had made Rick grow as white as a sheet, and she was sure he'd trembled in his boots. That was why he had promptly decided to send Tyson away to a camp for troubled young boys for 6 weeks, where they underwent some kind of military discipline, under the influence of 2 instructors who were retired from the military and were successful in nipping turbulent behaviour from troubled kids in the bud, with their disciplined, regimental, structured routines. And in the beginning it seemed to have worked, as when Tyson returned to the farmhouse after the 6-week break, he seemed to have undergone a miraculous metamorphosis. Could the family dare to hope that Tyson had turned into a likeable child? It would seem the enigmatic, mysterious shifting around of horses in their stalls over the last year had stopped when Eric decided to leave them in the stalls the stranger had chosen for them. He was amazed how much more settled the horses had become, as if they liked the new arrangements so much better. Could it be that the mysterious stranger, who had shifted the horses into different stalls, had a marked understanding of animals, and had moved them so that they could be in the stalls that they personally liked best? It seemed like a crazy idea, but Eric had reached the conclusion, as the new living arrangements for the horses meant they were much more settled, and Bluebell had become infinitely less stressed. In her previous stall, Bluebell had kicked and made such a fuss. always appearing exceedingly unhappy. But now she was very contented, and the transformation in her demeanour had been nothing short of miraculous. Eric was increasingly frustrated by not knowing who had changed the stalls around for the horses, but he knew with the problem of having Tyson having moved into the Saxon household, there were bigger issues at stake than getting to the bottom of this curious mystery. So there we are. That is the end of part 2 of our story tonight. Isn't it a fantastic story? So we have a very interesting conundrum here. Is this camp for boys going to make any difference to this young boy? I don't think so, but we might be surprised. And as for Eric and those horses being changed around, what's going on there? Hopefully we'll find out soon. Until tomorrow night, I look forward to seeing you then. Good night and goodbye.